The yellow bus wheezed to a stop at the corner of Maple Street and 3rd Avenue, its hydraulic brakes hissing like an old serpent. 8-year-old Emma Catherine Morrison clutched her pink backpack straps, her sandy hair catching the morning light, as she climbed the metal steps. Bus driver Harold Watkins checked her off his mental list. Seat 12, always seat 12, right behind the safety line. "Morning, sunshine," Harold called over his shoulder, his weathered hands gripping the oversized steering wheel. Emma gave him her usual shy wave before settling into her familiar spot. The vinyl seat, cracked from years of use, had become her second home during these 15-minute rides to Roosevelt Elementary. At exactly 8:03 a.m., the bus pulled into the school's circular driveway. Security cameras mounted on every corner captured the routine exodus of children, their backpacks bouncing as they hurried toward the brick building that had educated Springfield's youth since 1987. Emma's purple sneakers appeared briefly in camera angle 7 as she walked through the main entrance, past the metal detectors installed just 2 years prior. Mrs. Patricia Hernandez marked Emma present in her 3rd grade attendance log at 8:12 a.m. The little girl took her assigned seat in the 2nd row, directly beneath the alphabet banner that had watched over countless students. She unpacked her mechanical pencils with methodical precision, arranging them parallel to her notebook's edge, a habit her mother Sarah had noticed developing over the past semester. The morning proceeded with mathematical precision, reading comprehension from 8:30 to 9:15, math worksheets focusing on multiplication tables from 9:20 to 10:05, a 15-minute recess where Emma spent most of her time feeding breadcrumbs to the sparrows that nested in the oak tree near the playground's eastern fence. At 11:47 a.m., Mrs. Hernandez received an intercom message from the main office. "Emma Morrison to the principal's office for early dismissal." The teacher glanced at her roster, noting no prearranged pickup request. This was unusual but not unprecedented. Family emergencies happened, and the office staff always verified these requests thoroughly. Emma gathered her belongings with the same careful precision she'd displayed all morning. Her classmates barely looked up from their geography worksheets as she walked toward the door. Mrs. Hernandez handed her the yellow early dismissal slip, standard protocol for any student leaving before regular hours. "Take care, sweetie," the teacher said, not knowing these would be the last words she'd ever speak to Emma Morrison. The hallway security camera captured Emma walking toward the main office at 11:51 a.m. She passed the trophy case displaying decades of academic achievements, her reflection ghosting across the glass surface. The next camera, positioned at the office entrance, showed her entering the administrative area at 11:53 a.m., and then nothing. The final image of Emma Catherine Morrison showed her standing at the office counter, her pink backpack clearly visible, her blonde hair neatly braided, as her mother had done that morning. The timestamp read 11:54:17 a.m., March 18, 2025. She would never be seen again. Tuesday, March 18, 2025, 3:45 p.m. Morrison family home, 12:47. Elm Street Sarah Morrison stood at her kitchen window, watching the empty driveway with growing unease. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the front lawn, but the familiar yellow bulk of bus number 47 was nowhere to be seen. Her daughter's bus had arrived at 3:30 p.m. every day for the past 7 months, with military precision that had become the backbone of their daily routine. She checked her phone for the 4th time in 10 minutes. No missed calls, no text messages from the school. The device showed 3:47 p.m. in stark digital numbers that seemed to mock her growing anxiety. At 3:52 p.m., Sarah dialed Roosevelt Elementary's main office. The phone rang 6 times before connecting to the automated system. "Thank you for calling. Roosevelt Elementary School, where every child matters. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 4:01 p.m. If this is an emergency..." Sarah pressed 0 repeatedly until a human voice answered. "Roosevelt Elementary, this is Janet speaking. Hi, this is Sarah Morrison, Emma Morrison's mother in Mrs. Hernandez's class. She hasn't come home on the bus, and I'm wondering if..." "Hold on, let me check our dismissal log." The sound of keyboard clicks filtered through the phone. Mrs. Morrison, I show Emma was picked up early today at 11:54 a.m. Someone from your family signed her out. The kitchen tiles seemed to shift beneath Sarah's feet. That's impossible. I never authorized an early pickup. Who signed her out? More keyboard sounds. Janet's voice became noticeably more cautious. The signature reads, "It's difficult to make out. Let me transfer you to Principal Martinez immediately." The next 23 minutes unfolded in a cascade of confusion and mounting terror. Principal Martinez examined the dismissal log while Sarah drove to the school, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. The signature on the form was illegible, a scrawled approximation of letters that could have belonged to anyone. Security. Footage review began at 4:31 p.m. 5 staff members crowded around the main office monitor, fast-forwarding through the day's recordings. They watched Emma enter the office at 11:53 a.m., approach the counter at 11:54 a.m., and then the camera angle shifted. The next frame showed an empty counter. "Where's the footage of her leaving?" Sarah's voice cracked with desperation. Principal Martinez rewound the video 3 times. The timestamp jumped from 11:54:17 a.m. to 12:47:23 a.m., a gap of 53 minutes and 6 seconds. "There appears to be a technical malfunction with our system. This sometimes happens when—" "No." Sarah's word cut through the administrator's explanation like a blade. "Someone deleted that footage. Someone took my daughter." The Springfield Police Department received the missing child report at 5:23 p.m. Detective Michael Reeves, a 20-year veteran with deep-set eyes and prematurely gray hair, arrived at Roosevelt Elementary at 5:41 p.m. By 6:15 p.m., an Amber Alert had been issued across Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia. Emma Catherine Morrison, age 8, blonde hair, blue eyes, 4 feet 2 inches tall, weighing 63 pounds. Last seen wearing a red sweater, blue jeans, and purple sneakers. Pink backpack with butterfly patches. The alert reached 2.3 million mobile devices within the first hour. Local news stations interrupted regular programming. Social media algorithms pushed Emma's photograph to thousands of feeds across multiple platforms. But as the sun set over Springfield on March 18, 2025, Emma Morrison had vanished as completely as if she'd never existed at all. Wednesday, March 19, 2025, 6 a.m. Springfield Police Department, Major Crimes Division Detective Michael Reeves hadn't slept. The coffee in his 3rd cup had gone cold hours ago, but he continued drinking it anyway, using the bitter liquid as fuel for his mounting frustration. The evidence board behind his desk displayed Emma Morrison's school photograph alongside a timeline that made no sense. 47 children had been dismissed early from Roosevelt Elementary on March 18th. 46 of those dismissals had proper documentation, verified signatures, and confirmed pickup by authorized guardians. Emma Morrison was the exception, a glaring anomaly in an otherwise routine day. The school's security system consisted of 12 cameras positioned at strategic locations throughout the building. 11 of those cameras functioned perfectly on March 18th, recording every moment of the school day with digital precision. Camera number 8, positioned directly above the main office exit, had experienced a technical malfunction lasting exactly 53 minutes and 6 seconds. "Too convenient," Reeves muttered, studying the manufacturer's specifications for the security system. The cameras were Axis P3367VE models, installed in 2023 as part of a federal safety grant. According to the technical documentation, these units featured automatic backup recording and redundant memory systems specifically designed to prevent data loss. Detective Lisa Chen knocked on his office door at 6:23 a.m. Her usually immaculate appearance showed signs of the sleepless night they'd all endured. Wrinkled blouse, coffee stain on her badge holder, dark circles beneath her eyes. "Forensics finished processing the school," she reported, settling into the chair across from his desk. Fingerprint analysis on the dismissal form revealed 12 different sets of prints. Office staff, teachers, and parents who handled similar forms throughout the week. "The signature is worthless. Whoever wrote it knew enough to make it illegible. Reeves pulled up the digital scan of the dismissal form on his computer monitor. The signature looked like a seismograph reading, peaks and valleys that could spell any name or no name at all. What about the handwriting analysis? 3 different experts looked at it. They all reached the same conclusion: deliberately disguised. The person who wrote this altered their natural writing style to avoid identification. We're dealing with someone who understands investigative techniques. The phone on Reeves's desk rang at 6:31 a.m. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but the voice belonged to FBI Special Agent Patricia Kovac. "Detective Reeves, I'm calling regarding the Emma Morrison case. We'd like to offer federal assistance." Reeves switched the phone to speaker mode so Chen could hear. "I appreciate the offer, Agent Kovac, but this just happened yesterday. Don't you usually wait 72 hours before—" "This case has some unusual characteristics that suggest interstate involvement. We've been monitoring similar disappearances across the Midwest. Children taken from schools with identical methods, forged dismissal forms, security camera malfunctions, and complete disappearances." Chen leaned forward in her chair. "How many similar cases? 7 confirmed incidents over the past 18 months. Cincinnati, Columbus, Toledo, Indianapolis, Louisville, Fort Wayne, and now Springfield. All elementary schools. All children between ages 7 and 9. All cases involving sophisticated planning and execution." The room fell silent except for the humming of Reeves's computer fan. 7 children. 7 families destroyed by the same methodical predator or organization. "We'll take any help you can provide," Reeves finally said. By 7:45 a.m., the Springfield Police Department's conference room had been transformed into a federal task force command center. Agent Kovac arrived with 2 additional FBI personnel, mobile communications unit, and enough computer equipment to analyze digital evidence in real time. The 7 case files spread across the conference table told a disturbing story. Each disappearance followed the same pattern: forged early dismissal, camera malfunction, vanished child. But the similarities went deeper than methodology. All 7 schools used the same security system manufacturer. All 7 cameras that malfunctioned were Model P3367VE units. All 7 incidents occurred on Tuesday afternoons between 11:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. "Someone's been studying these schools," Agent Kovac observed, arranging the photographs of the missing children in chronological order. "This isn't random, it's systematic." Thursday, March 20th, 2025, 2:15 p.m. FBI Cybercrimes Division, Cincinnati Field Office. Special Agent Marcus Webb stared at lines of code that appeared to dance across his monitor screen. The Axis security systems, firmware had been dissected, analyzed, and reconstructed in the Bureau's Digital Forensics Laboratory. What they discovered challenged everything the investigators thought they knew about the case. "The camera malfunctions weren't malfunctions at all," Webb announced to the task force via video conference. His image pixelated slightly as he shared his screen with the Springfield team. "Someone installed malware specifically designed to create recording gaps while maintaining the appearance of normal operation." Detective Reeves leaned closer to his laptop screen. "You're saying this was hacked?" "More than hacked. This is sophisticated custom software that required intimate knowledge of the Axis system architecture. Whoever created this malware spent months studying these specific camera models, learning their vulnerabilities, and crafting targeted exploits." The code fragments Webb displayed looked like digital hieroglyphics to most of the task force members, but the implications were clear. Someone had developed the technological equivalent of a master key, a way to blind any Axis P3367VE camera for precisely the amount of time needed to remove a child from school premises. Agent Kovac's voice crackled through the conference room. Speakers. "How difficult would it be to create this type of malware?" "This isn't script kiddie work," Webb replied. "We're looking at someone with advanced programming skills, detailed knowledge of network security protocols, and access to Axis firmware documentation that's typically restricted to certified technicians and law enforcement agencies." The task force spent the next 2 hours analyzing the technical aspects of the intrusion. The malware had been deployed remotely, activated by a specific signal sent to the school's network infrastructure. Once triggered, it created a 53-minute and 6-second recording gap, exactly long enough for someone to enter the school, remove a child, and escape without being captured on video. But the most disturbing discovery came at 4:47 p.m., when Webb uncovered evidence of reconnaissance activity. The perpetrator didn't just hack the cameras, he reported. They've been monitoring these school networks for months, possibly years. Look at this. His screen displayed network traffic logs showing repeated access to Roosevelt Elementary's computer systems dating back to September 2024. Someone had been watching, learning the school's routines, studying dismissal procedures, and identifying the optimal timing for their operation. They knew Emma Morrison's schedule, Detective Chen realized. They knew which classroom she was in, what time she typically left for recess, and exactly when to send the fake dismissal request. The investigation's scope expanded dramatically. If the perpetrator had been monitoring Roosevelt Elementary for months, they'd likely been conducting similar surveillance at the other 6 schools. Webb's team began analyzing network traffic from Cincinnati, Columbus, Toledo, Indianapolis, Louisville, and Fort Wayne. The pattern emerged within hours. Every school that had experienced a child disappearance showed identical network intrusion signatures, the same digital fingerprints, the same methodical surveillance, the same precise timing. We're dealing with someone who's been planning this operation for years, Agent Kovacs concluded during the evening briefing. This isn't opportunistic crime, it's systematic predation using advanced technology. As darkness fell over Springfield on March 20th, Emma Morrison had been missing for 54 hours. But the investigation had revealed something far more terrifying than a single child's disappearance. They were hunting a technologically sophisticated predator who had been watching, waiting, and planning for years. Monday, March 24th, 2025, 11:30. Emma Morrison Family Home, 1247. Elm Street, Sarah Morrison sat in Emma's bedroom, surrounded by the ghosts of childhood. Pink walls adorned with butterfly stickers. A bookshelf filled with chapter books her daughter had been reading before. Everything changed. The silence was deafening. No sound of small feet running down the hallway. No laughter echoing from the backyard. No voice calling Mommy from the next room. 6 days. Emma had been gone for 6 days, and the official investigation seemed to be moving at the speed of bureaucracy. Sarah understood that Detective Reeves and the FBI were doing everything possible, but every hour that passed felt like a betrayal of her daughter's memory. She opened her laptop and logged into the Facebook group that had formed organically in the wake of Emma's disappearance. Finding Emma Morrison had grown to over 12,000 members, including concerned parents, retired investigators, and amateur sleuths from across the country. The group had become a hive of activity, with members analyzing security footage, creating timeline reconstructions, and sharing theories about what might have happened. But tonight, Sarah was interested in something else entirely. She'd been thinking about the other missing children, the 7 cases Agent Kovacs had mentioned, 7 families who had experienced the same nightmare she was living now. She found the first family on Facebook within 20 minutes. Angela Martinez of Cincinnati, whose son Diego had vanished from St. Catherine Elementary School 14 months. Gutted, Sarah sent a private message. "I'm Sarah Morrison, Emma's mother from Springfield. Can we talk?" The response came within minutes. "I've been waiting for your message since I heard about Emma. Can you call me now?" The conversation that followed lasted until 3:17 a.m. Angela Martinez described an investigation that followed the same pattern Sarah was witnessing. Initial confusion, security camera malfunctions, forged dismissal forms, and then the gradual realization that her son's disappearance was part of something much larger. After the first month, the investigation stalled, Angela explained, her voice carrying the weight of 14 months of unanswered questions. The FBI said they were pursuing all leads, but nothing concrete ever developed. Diego's case became a file number in a database somewhere. Sarah established contact with 4 more families over the following week. Each conversation revealed the same pattern: initial intensive investigation, followed by gradual bureaucratic fade-out as cases grew cold. The families had been left to continue searching on their own, using social media groups, private investigators, and amateur detective networks. "We've been trying to coordinate our efforts," explained Patricia Williams, whose daughter Jennifer had vanished from a Fort Wayne elementary school, "but we're just grieving parents. We don't have the resources or expertise to conduct a proper investigation." The idea came to Sarah during a sleepless night on March 31st. If the official investigation was constrained by jurisdiction, bureaucracy, and resource limitations, perhaps the families could create their own parallel investigation using the tools available to any citizen with internet access. She created a private Facebook group called 7 Families and invited the parents of all 7 missing children. Within 48 hours, they had established a communication network, shared all available case information, and begun developing their own investigative protocols. The group's first major breakthrough came from an unexpected source: retired Detective Raymond Foster, whose granddaughter attended Roosevelt Elementary. Foster had been following Emma's case independently and offered to provide guidance to the family's informal investigation. "You have advantages the official investigation doesn't," Foster explained during their first video conference call. "You're not constrained by jurisdictional boundaries, warrant requirements, or departmental politics. You can pursue leads and theories that might take law enforcement months to develop." Under Foster's guidance, the 7 Families group began conducting systematic analysis of their children's disappearances. They created detailed timelines, analyzed surveillance footage, and mapped the geographical distribution of the crimes. They established secure communication channels and developed information-sharing protocols that rivaled professional investigative units. But their most significant discovery would come from an entirely unexpected source: Google Maps. Saturday, April 5th, 2025, 2:30 p.m. Morrison family home. Computer room Sarah Morrison had been staring at the same Google Maps interface for 3 hours, methodically examining every Street View image within a 5-mile radius of Roosevelt Elementary School. It had become her weekend routine, a digital pilgrimage through the geography of her daughter's disappearance, searching for clues that professional investigators might have overlooked. The idea had come from Angela Martinez, who remembered reading about cases where Google Street View had helped solve missing person investigations. If someone had been conducting surveillance of the schools for months, there was a possibility they might have been captured by Google's comprehensive street-level photography system. Sarah zoomed in on Maple Street, the route Emma's school bus took every morning. She clicked through the Street View images methodically, examining each photograph for anything unusual. Most images showed typical suburban scenes: parked cars, lawn maintenance equipment, neighbors walking dogs, children playing in front yards. But at 2:47 p.m., she noticed something that made her pause. The Google Street View car had photographed the intersection of Maple Street and 3rd Avenue on February 14, 2025, exactly 32 days before Emma's disappearance. In the background of the image, barely visible behind a cluster of oak trees, was a dark blue sedan with tinted windows parked in a position that provided a clear view of the bus stop where Emma waited every morning. Sarah zoomed in on the vehicle, but the image resolution wasn't sufficient to reveal license plate details or the driver's identity. However, she could see that someone was sitting in the car, a shadowy figure behind the steering wheel. She screenshotted the image and immediately shared it with the 7 Families group. Within minutes, other parents were examining their own local Google Street View data, searching for similar surveillance evidence near their children's schools. The results were extraordinary. Patricia Williams found a nearly identical dark blue sedan parked near her daughter's Fort Wayne school in Google Street View imagery from January 12, 2025. The vehicle was positioned to provide optimal observation of the school's pickup and drop-off area. Angela Martinez discovered the same type of vehicle near her son's Cincinnati school in imagery dated November 3, 2024, 3 weeks before Diego's disappearance. One by one, parents from all 7 affected families found evidence of the same dark blue sedan conducting surveillance near their children's schools. The timestamps revealed a systematic pattern. The vehicle appeared in each location for several weeks, leading up to each child's disappearance, always positioned to maximize observation of school activities. Retired Detective Foster was amazed by the family's discovery. "This is the kind of breakthrough that can change an entire investigation," he told them during an emergency video conference that evening. "You've identified a common thread that connects all 7 cases with physical evidence." The families immediately shared their findings with law enforcement. Detective Reeves received Sarah's email at 7:23 p.m. and forwarded the information to Agent Kovacs within minutes. The FBI's digital analysis team began processing the Google Street View evidence, using enhancement software to extract every possible detail from the images. By Sunday morning, federal investigators had confirmed the family's discovery. The same vehicle had been conducting surveillance at all 7 schools, following a methodical pattern that coincided with the planning phase of each abduction. But the most significant breakthrough was yet to come. Agent Webb's enhanced analysis of the Google Street View images revealed a partially visible license plate in one of the Fort Wayne photographs. The Indiana plate showed the letters RKX, followed by 3 numbers that were obscured by shadows and image compression. "We're running database searches for all Indiana license plates beginning with RKX, Agent Kovacs reported to the task force. "There are approximately 400 possible matches. We'll have a complete list within 24 hours. For the first time since Emma's disappearance, Sarah Morrison felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. Monday, April 7th, 2025, 9:15. AMFBI Regional Office, Cincinnati, Ohio. The breakthrough came at exactly 9:15 a.m., delivered by Agent Webb with the precision of a digital surgeon extracting evidence from binary code. The partially visible license plate from the Fort Wayne Google Street View image had been processed through advanced enhancement algorithms, revealing enough additional detail to narrow the search parameters significantly. Indiana license plate. RKX 847, Webb announced to the assembled task force. Registered to a 2019 Honda Accord sedan, dark blue metallic. Owner listed as Marcus Raymond Klein, age 43, address in Bloomington, Indiana. Detective Reeves felt his pulse quicken. After 19 days of investigation, they finally had a suspect with a name, address, and vehicle identification. "What do we know about Klein?" Agent Kovacs pulled up the suspect's file on her laptop. Marcus Klein, born October 12, 1981, in Gary, Indiana. Bachelor's degree in computer science from Purdue University. Master's degree in network security from Indiana University. Employed as a senior systems administrator for Midwest Educational Services, a company that provides IT support to school districts across 7 states. The room fell silent. Klein's employment provided him with legitimate access to school computer networks, detailed knowledge of educational security systems, and familiarity with the daily operations of elementary schools throughout the region. Midwest Educational Services, Chen repeated slowly. "Do they service any of the schools where children disappeared?" Webb's fingers flew across his keyboard. The search results appeared within seconds, and the implications were staggering. "All 7 schools," he reported. Roosevelt Elementary, St. Catherine's, Toledo Public School 47, Indianapolis Learning Center, Louisville Elementary Academy, Fort Wayne Community School, and Columbus Primary Institute. Midwest Educational Services has contracts with every single school district involved in our cases. Klein hadn't been conducting random surveillance of schools. He'd had legitimate authorized access to their computer networks, security systems, and operational procedures. His job required him to visit these schools regularly, providing perfect cover for reconnaissance activities. Agent Kovacs coordinated with Indiana law enforcement to establish surveillance of Klein's Bloomington residence, while the task force developed tactical plans for apprehension. The suspect's technical expertise and potential access to weapons made him extremely dangerous. "This guy has been planning and executing these abductions for almost 2 years," she explained to the team. "He's methodical, patient, and technologically sophisticated. We need to assume he's anticipated law enforcement response and taken precautions." Meanwhile, Sarah Morrison and the 7 Families group were experiencing their own moment of vindication. Their amateur investigation using publicly available Google Street View data had provided the crucial evidence that led to suspect identification. "We did it," Sarah whispered during the family's emergency video conference that evening. "We actually found him." But Detective Foster cautioned against premature celebration. Identifying the suspect is just the beginning. Now law enforcement has to build a case strong enough for prosecution, and more importantly, they need to locate the children. The surveillance of Klein's residence began at 2:30 p.m. on Monday, April 7th. FBI agents positioned themselves at strategic locations around the suburban neighborhood, using advanced optical equipment to monitor all activity at the suspect's home. Klein's house was a modest two-story colonial with an attached garage situated on a quarter-acre lot surrounded by mature trees that provided natural concealment. The property's layout suggested multiple potential entry and exit points, complicating any tactical operation. At 6:47 p.m., Klein's dark blue Honda Accord pulled into the driveway. Surveillance cameras captured clear images of the suspect for the first time. A tall, thin man with receding brown hair and wire-rimmed glasses, carrying a laptop computer case and wearing the type of business-casual clothing typical of IT professionals. He entered the house through the front door and remained inside for the rest of the evening. Lights were visible in various rooms throughout the night, suggesting normal residential activity. But thermal imaging revealed something unusual. The house's basement showed heat signatures inconsistent with typical residential use. The temperature readings suggested the presence of electronic equipment or possibly multiple heat sources in the underground level. "We need to move on this quickly," Agent Kovac decided during the 11:00 p.m. tactical briefing. "If Klein suspects he's been identified, he might destroy evidence or harm the children." The search warrant was signed by a federal magistrate at 1:23 a.m. on Tuesday, April 8th. The FBI hostage rescue team was briefed and positioned around Klein's residence by 4:15 a.m. At exactly 5 a.m., as the first light of dawn broke over Bloomington, Indiana, 12 federal agents converged on Marcus Klein's house in a carefully coordinated operation designed to locate Emma Morrison and 6 other missing children. Tuesday, April 8, 2025. 5 a.m. K-Line residence, 1847. Sycamore Drive, Bloomington, Indiana. Front door exploded inward with a thunderous crash as the FBI hostage rescue team's battering ram shattered the wooden frame. Agent Patricia Kovac led the entry team through the doorway, her tactical vest bearing the bright yellow FBI letters that identified her as federal law enforcement. FBI. Search warrant. Hands where we can see them. The house erupted in controlled chaos as 12 agents flooded through multiple entry points simultaneously. Flashlight beams cut through the pre-dawn darkness, illuminating furniture, doorways, and corners where a suspect might attempt to hide or resist arrest. Marcus Klein was found in his second-floor bedroom, sitting calmly on the edge of his bed, as if he'd been waiting for this moment. He wore grey pajamas and wire-rimmed glasses, his hands raised in compliance with the agent's shouted commands. "Marcus Raymond Klein, you're under arrest for kidnapping, interstate transportation of minors, and conspiracy to commit federal crimes," Agent Kovac announced, reading him his Miranda rights while other agents secured the residence. Klein said nothing. He stared straight ahead with the blank expression of someone who had resigned himself to inevitable capture. No surprise, no protest, no denial, just passive acceptance that his carefully planned operation had finally reached its conclusion. The real investigation began once Klein was in custody. Agent Webb led the digital forensics team through Klein's home office, which contained enough computer equipment to operate a small IT business. Multiple servers hummed in a climate-controlled closet, their LED lights blinking in synchronized patterns that suggested complex network operations. "This is where he coordinated everything," Webb observed, examining Klein's primary workstation. The computer screens displayed network monitoring software, school district databases, and what appeared to be custom surveillance applications. He's been watching these schools' digital infrastructure for years, but it was the basement that revealed the true scope of Klein's operation. The underground level had been converted into a sophisticated command center, with multiple monitor arrays displaying real-time feeds from various locations. Digital maps covered one wall, marked with pins indicating school locations, timing schedules, and what appeared to be escape routes. However, the basement contained no evidence of children ever being held on the premises. No bedrooms, no confinement areas, no personal belongings from any of the missing victims. "Where are they?" Agent Kovacs demanded during Klein's initial interrogation. "Where are the children?" Klein requested legal representation and refused to answer any questions about the whereabouts of Emma Morrison and the 6 other missing children. His attorney, Rebecca Santos, arrived at 9:30 a.m. and immediately advised her client to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights. The forensic analysis of Klein's digital devices revealed the complete architecture of his surveillance operation. He had installed remote monitoring software on school networks, tracked individual students' schedules, and mapped optimal timing for abductions. His computer contained detailed profiles of all 7 missing children, including photographs, daily routines, and family information. But most disturbing was the discovery of communications with unidentified third parties. Klein had been exchanging encrypted messages with at least 3 other individuals, coordinating logistics and sharing intelligence about target schools. "This isn't a lone wolf operation," Agent Webb reported during the afternoon briefing. Klein was part of a larger network. The children aren't here because he wasn't keeping them, he was delivering them to someone else. Sarah Morrison received the phone call at 2:47 p.m. Detective Reeves' voice carried both hope and frustration as he explained the morning's developments. "We arrested the man who took Emma, but we haven't found her yet. Klein was working with others, and we're still identifying his accomplices. This case is more complex than we initially thought." Sarah felt her world shift again. They'd found the person responsible for her daughter's disappearance, but Emma was still missing, still in danger, still beyond her reach. "How long?" she asked. "How long before you find her?" Reeves couldn't provide the answer she desperately needed. "We're analyzing Klein's communications to identify his associates. Every digital forensics expert in the Bureau is working on this case. We'll find her, Sarah. We won't stop until we bring all of these children home." But as evening approached on April 8th, Emma Morrison and 6 other children remained missing, somewhere in the custody of Marcus Klein's unidentified accomplices. The investigation had achieved a major breakthrough, but the most important objective, rescuing the children, remained elusive. Wednesday, April 9th, 2025, 3:20 a.m. FBI Cybercrimes Division Quantico, Virginia agent Marcus Webb had been awake for 22 hours, sustained by coffee and the desperate urgency of 7 missing children whose lives depended on his ability to decode Marcus Klein's digital communications. The encrypted messages found on Klein's computer represented the only lead to locating Emma Morrison and the other victims. The encryption was sophisticated, military-grade algorithms that would typically require months or years to crack using conventional methods. But Klein had made a critical error. He'd used the same encryption key for multiple communications, creating a pattern that Webb's advanced decryption software could exploit. At 3:20 a.m., the first encrypted message unlocked. Package 7 delivered. To location Delta, awaiting further instructions. MK. The timestamp corresponded to March 18, 2025, at 1:47 p.m., approximately 2 hours after Emma Morrison's disappearance from Roosevelt Elementary School. Package 7 was Emma. Location Delta was somewhere unknown, but it was where Klein had delivered her to his accomplices. Webb immediately called Agent Kovacs. "I've cracked the first message. Klein was definitely delivering the children to other locations. There are multiple pickup sites referenced in his communications." Over the next 4 hours, Webb's team decoded 17 additional messages, revealing a disturbing network of individuals coordinating child trafficking across multiple states. The communications mentioned procurement specialists, Klein's role, transport coordinators, storage facilities, and final destinations. But most importantly, they revealed the identities of Klein's accomplices. Thomas Brennan, age 51, operated a storage facility in rural Kentucky where the children were being held temporarily. Rebecca Martinez, age 38, coordinated Transportation between pickup points and holding locations. David Chen, age 44, managed the final destinations, locations where the children were ultimately delivered to unidentified buyers. This is a commercial child trafficking operation, Agent Kovacs realized during the 7 a.m. emergency briefing. Klein wasn't just abducting children for personal reasons, he was supplying them to a broader criminal network. Federal arrest warrants were issued for Brennan, Martinez, and Chen by 8:30 a.m. Multi-state raids were coordinated across Kentucky, Tennessee, and Illinois, with tactical teams positioned to strike simultaneously at 10 a.m. to prevent suspects from communicating and destroying evidence. Meanwhile, Sarah Morrison and the Seven Families group monitored police scanner apps and news feeds, desperate for any information about the raid's progress. The parents had maintained their 24-hour communication network, providing mutual support during the agonizing wait for news about their children. At 10:17 a.m., the first tactical team breached Thomas Brennan's storage facility outside Louisville, Kentucky. The converted warehouse contained multiple climate-controlled units that had been modified with living quarters, beds, portable toilets, and basic food supplies. But the facility was empty. No children on site, the team leader reported over. Tactical radio. Evidence of recent occupancy, but the location has been abandoned within the past 48 hours. Agent Kovacs felt her stomach drop. The suspects had somehow known about Klein's arrest and evacuated the children before law enforcement could locate them. The second raid, targeting Rebecca Martinez's transport operation in Nashville, Tennessee, yielded similar results. Martinez's warehouse contained several vehicles with modified interiors designed to conceal passengers, but no trace of the missing children. The breakthrough came from the third location. David Chen's facility in rural Illinois contained extensive records of the trafficking network's operations, including detailed logs of child deliveries, transport schedules, and customer information. But most importantly, they found evidence that the children had been moved to a final location just hours before the raids. According to these records, all 7 children were transported to a facility in northern Michigan yesterday evening, Agent Webb reported after analyzing Chen's computer files. The destination is listed as Sanctuary Site Alpha with GPS coordinates that correspond to a remote location in the Upper Peninsula. The coordinates led to a heavily wooded area near Lake Superior, approximately 40 miles from the nearest town. Satellite imagery showed a large compound consisting of multiple buildings surrounded by high fencing and what appeared to be guard posts. This is their primary facility, Agent Kovacs realized. Everything else was temporary holding and transport. The children are being held at this Michigan location. Federal resources were immediately redirected toward the Upper Peninsula. The FBI's hostage rescue team, U.S. Marshal Service, and Michigan State Police coordinated for what would become the largest child rescue operation in the region's history. But the compound's remote location presented significant tactical challenges. The facility was accessible only by a single road that could be easily monitored and defended. The heavily wooded terrain prevented covert approach, and the unknown number of suspects made planning extremely difficult. "We need to assume the worst-case scenario," the tactical commander explained during the operational briefing. "Multiple armed suspects, possible explosive devices, and 7 traumatized children who might not understand that we're there to rescue them." At 4:30 p.m. on April 9th, Sarah Morrison received another phone call from Detective Reeves. "We've located where Emma is being held. We're conducting a rescue operation within the next few hours. I need you to be prepared for any outcome, Sarah. We don't know what condition the children will be in when we find them." Sarah closed her eyes and whispered a prayer she'd been repeating for 22 days. "Please bring my baby home." Wednesday, April 9th, 2025, 11:45 p.m. Remote compound, Upper Peninsula, Michigan. The FBI hostage rescue team moved through the dense Michigan forest like shadows, their night vision equipment turning the moonless darkness into a green-tinted tactical landscape. Agent Patricia Kovacs led the primary assault team, while secondary units positioned themselves around the compound's perimeter to prevent any escape attempts. Thermal imaging revealed 7 small heat signatures in the compound's main building, approximately the right size and number to be the missing children. 3 larger signatures indicated adult suspects, but the exact number of hostile forces remained unknown. All teams in position, the tactical commander reported through encrypted radio communications, commencing operation at 23:47 hours. The compound's perimeter fence was breached simultaneously at 4 locations using bolt cutters and specialized entry tools. The assault teams advanced toward the main building, maintaining formation discipline while scanning for defensive positions and potential threats. The front door of the main building was reinforced steel, but the teams breaching, charges made quick work of the barrier. The explosion echoed across the remote landscape as federal agents flooded into the structure. FBI, hands up, get on the ground. The interior was a maze of corridors and rooms that had been hastily converted into living quarters. The agents moved methodically through each space, clearing corners and securing potential hiding spots where armed suspects might attempt to make a stand. They found the first suspect, David Chen, hiding in a supply closet near the kitchen. He surrendered without resistance, his hands shaking as agents placed him in custody. The second suspect, Rebecca Martinez, was apprehended attempting to flee through a rear exit. She was carrying a laptop computer and several hard drives, evidence that she'd been trying to destroy when the raid began. But Thomas Brennan was nowhere to be found. Building secured, 2 suspects in custody, 1 suspect unaccounted for, the team leader reported. Beginning search for the children. The children were discovered in a converted dormitory on the building's 2nd floor. 7 small figures, huddled together on makeshift beds, their eyes wide with terror as armed agents entered the room with tactical lights blazing. Emma Morrison was sitting in the corner, clutching a stuffed animal that her mother had packed in her school backpack. 22 days ago. She looked thin and pale but physically unharmed. "It's okay, sweetheart," Agent Kovac said, removing her tactical helmet and kneeling to Emma's eye level. "We're police officers. We're here to take you home to your mommy." The other children, Diego Martinez, Jennifer Williams, and 4 others, whose disappearances had terrorized families across the Midwest, sat in various states of shock and confusion. They'd been held in this remote location for months, isolated from any contact with the outside world. Emergency medical personnel were immediately summoned to evaluate the children's physical and psychological condition. Paramedics established that all 7 victims were alive and had received adequate food and medical care during their captivity, but showed obvious signs of psychological trauma. "We need to get them to hospitals immediately," the lead paramedic reported. "They're physically stable, but they're going to need extensive counseling and support to recover from this experience." The missing suspect, Thomas Brennan, was located an hour later attempting to escape through the forest on foot. He was apprehended by Michigan State police officers who had established a perimeter around the compound. At 1:23 a.m. on April 10th, Sarah Morrison's phone rang with the call she'd been praying for since March 18th. "Sarah, this is Detective Reeves. We found Emma. She's alive, she's safe, and she's coming home." Sarah collapsed to her knees in her kitchen, overwhelmed by 22 days of accumulated fear, hope, and exhaustion, finally releasing in a flood of tears. "Is she hurt? Is she okay?" "She's going to be fine, Sarah. The doctors are checking her over, but she appears to be physically unharmed. She's been asking for you." The reunion took place at Children's Hospital of Michigan at 6:47 a.m. Emma ran into her mother's arms with the desperate energy of a child who had never stopped believing that this moment would come. "Mommy, I knew you would find me." Sarah held her daughter so tightly that hospital staff worried she might never let go. After 22 days of living in a nightmare, Emma Catherine Morrison was finally home. Thursday, April 10th, 2025. 2:10 p.m. FBI Field Office, Detroit, Michigan. Interrogation of the trafficking network's leadership revealed the full scope of an operation that had been developing for over 3 years. Marcus Klein, Thomas Brennan, Rebecca Martinez, and David Chen had created a sophisticated child procurement and distribution system that operated across multiple states with military-like precision. Agent Kovac reviewed the case files in the conference room where she'd spent the past 24 hours debriefing the rescued children and processing evidence from the Michigan compound. The operation's scale was staggering. The network had been responsible for at least 17 child abductions across the Midwest, with Emma Morrison and her 6 fellow victims representing only their most recent activities. Klein was the technical specialist, she explained to the assembled investigators. His job at Midwest Educational Services gave him legitimate access to school networks, allowing him to identify targets, study security systems, and plan abductions with minimal risk of detection. The trafficking network had operated with corporate-level organization. Klein handled target selection and acquisition. Brennan managed temporary holding facilities where children were housed during transport. Martinez coordinated logistics and movement between locations. Chen operated the final destination sites and managed customer relationships. Customer relationships, Detective Reeves repeated with disgust. They were selling children to buyers across the country. We've identified at least 12 individuals who purchased children from this network over the past 2 years. The digital evidence recovered from the suspects' computers revealed a client list that read like a catalogue of predators. Wealthy individuals from across the United States had been purchasing children for prices ranging from $50,000 to $200,000, depending on the child's age, appearance, and other characteristics that the investigators found too disturbing to discuss. In detail, Emma Morrison had been designated as premium inventory due to her age, appearance, and the perceived affluence of her family background. Her scheduled delivery to a buyer in Texas had been prevented by only 18 hours. The rescue operation had occurred just before she would have been transported to her final destination. The other children weren't so fortunate, Agent Webb reported somberly. We've identified 11 children who were successfully delivered to buyers between 2023 and 2024. We are coordinating with local law enforcement agencies to locate and rescue those victims. The case files revealed the methodical nature of Klein's surveillance operations. He had spent months monitoring each target school, learning staff schedules, studying security procedures, and identifying optimal timing for abductions. His computer contained detailed profiles of over 60 potential victims, children he had been considering for future operations. Sarah Morrison sat in the FBI Victim Services office, holding Emma's hand while they both provided statements about their experiences. Emma had been surprisingly resilient during her initial debriefing, providing clear information about her captivity that would be crucial for prosecuting the trafficking network. "The Batman told us we were going on a special trip," Emma explained to the child psychologist conducting her interview. "He said our parents knew where we were and that we would go home soon, but I didn't believe him because you always told me never to go with strangers." The psychological evaluation revealed that Emma and the other children had been subjected to systematic manipulation designed to make them compliant during their captivity. The traffickers had used techniques developed by experts in psychological coercion, alternating between kindness and threats to maintain control over their victims. "They're going to need extensive therapy," the child psychologist explained to Sarah. "The trauma from this experience will affect Emma for years to come. But children are remarkably resilient, and with proper support she can recover from this." The legal proceedings began immediately. Federal prosecutors filed charges against Klein, Brennan, Martinez, and Chen that included kidnapping, interstate transportation of minors, conspiracy, and operating a criminal enterprise. The evidence was overwhelming, and all 4 suspects would eventually accept plea agreements rather than face life sentences at trial. But for Sarah Morrison, the legal system's response seemed almost secondary to the miracle of having Emma home safely. "I don't care what happens to them," she told Detective Reeves during their final interview. "I just want Emma to heal and for our family to rebuild our lives." The 7 Families group maintained their communication network long after the rescue, providing mutual support as their children began the long process of recovery. Their amateur investigation using Google Street View had provided the crucial evidence that led to the traffickers' identification and arrest. "We saved our own children," Patricia Williams observed during one of their video conferences. When The system failed us. We found a way to fight back. Monday, April 14, 2025. Adoniram Morrison Family Home, Springfield, Ohio. The media circus began at dawn. News vans lined Elm Street like a mechanized invasion force, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like technological flowers seeking digital sunlight. Reporters with microphones and camera crews positioned themselves strategically around the Morrison family home, hoping to capture the first images of Emma since her rescue. Sarah Morrison peered through her living room curtains at the assembled media crowd. CNN, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS, and local affiliates from across the Midwest had descended on Springfield with the hungry intensity of vultures sensing a major story. "Mom, why are all those people outside?" Emma asked from the kitchen table, where she was eating her first bowl of cereal at home in 23 days. "They're reporters, sweetheart. They want to tell everyone about how brave you were and how happy we are that you're home." The story had exploded across national media within hours of the rescue operation's completion. 7 children rescued from trafficking network dominated headlines across every major news platform. The case had every element that media executives craved: missing children, high-tech investigation, interstate manhunt, and dramatic rescue. But the aspect of the story that captured public imagination was the role of the family's amateur investigation, using Google Street View. Social media platforms buzzed with discussions about how ordinary parents had used publicly available technology to solve crimes that had stumped law enforcement. Sarah's phone had been ringing constantly since Thursday morning. Interview requests from every major news organization, documentary filmmakers seeking to purchase her story rights, and book publishers offering substantial advances for the rights to publish her account of Emma's disappearance and rescue. Detective Reeves called at 8:23 a.m. to discuss media strategy. "Sarah, I know this attention is overwhelming, but there's value in telling your story publicly. It might help other families who are dealing with similar situations." "I just want Emma to have a normal life again," Sarah replied, watching her daughter through the kitchen doorway. "She's been through enough trauma without having cameras following her everywhere." The FBI had recommended that the Morrison family work with media relations specialists to manage the story's coverage while protecting Emma's privacy. The agency was particularly concerned about revealing investigative techniques that might help other criminals avoid detection in future cases. Agent Kovac arrived at 10:15 a.m. to brief Sarah on media protocols. "We need to be careful about what information becomes public. Klein's network was sophisticated, but there are undoubtedly other similar operations that we haven't discovered yet. We don't want to give them a roadmap for improving their security." The first major interview was scheduled with NBC's Today Show for the following morning. Sarah had agreed to appear without Emma, focusing on her experience as a mother searching for her missing child rather than the details of Emma's captivity. But the story's most compelling aspect was the 7 families group's use of Google Street View to identify the surveillance vehicle that led to Klein's arrest. Technology journalists and law enforcement experts were fascinated by the implications of citizen investigators using publicly available digital tools to solve crimes. "This case represents a new model of citizen-assisted law enforcement," explained Dr. Jennifer Hayes, a criminal justice professor at Ohio State University, during her appearance on CNN. Parents armed with internet access and determination were able to identify crucial evidence that might have taken professional investigators months to discover. The Google Street View discovery had prompted law enforcement agencies across the country to begin systematically reviewing publicly available imagery for evidence in unsolved cases. The FBI announced that they were developing new protocols for incorporating civilian digital investigations into official casework. Sarah received a call from Angela Martinez at 2:30 p.m., the mother of Diego Martinez, the first child rescued from the trafficking network, had been dealing with media attention for several days. "It gets easier," Angela assured her. "The reporters will move on to other stories within a week or two. But the important thing is that people understand what happened. To our children, there are other families out there who need to know that they shouldn't give up hope." The 7 families group had collectively decided to use their media platform to advocate for improved school security systems and enhanced law enforcement resources for investigating missing children cases. They were working with congressional representatives to propose legislation that would require schools to use more secure dismissal procedures and improve coordination between educational institutions and law enforcement. "We can't change what happened to our children," Patricia Williams explained during her Fox News interview, "but we can work to prevent it from happening to other families." Emma adapted to the media attention with the resilience that had helped her survive 23 days in captivity. She understood that people were interested in her story because they were happy she was safe, but she was more focused on returning to school, reconnecting with friends, and rebuilding the normal routine that had been stolen from her. "I want to go back to Mrs. Hernandez's class," she told her mother that evening. "I missed a lot of math lessons and I need to catch up." Tuesday, May 6, 2025, 9 a.m. Federal Courthouse, Cincinnati, Ohio. The courtroom was packed with families, law enforcement officials, and media representatives as Marcus Klein entered his guilty plea to 17 counts of kidnapping, interstate transportation of minors, and conspiracy to operate a criminal enterprise. Sarah Morrison sat in the front row, holding Emma's hand while her daughter completed a coloring book, a scene that perfectly captured the intersection of childhood innocence and adult justice. Klein appeared dramatically different from the confident IT professional who had been conducting surveillance operations just months earlier. Orange jail uniform, shackled hands and feet, hollow eyes that avoided contact with the families of his victims. His attorney, Rebecca Santos, had negotiated a plea agreement that would spare him the death penalty in exchange for full cooperation with ongoing investigations. "Mr. Klein, do you understand that by entering this guilty plea, you are acknowledging responsibility for the kidnapping of 7 children and your participation in a criminal organization that trafficked at least 17 minors over a 3-year period?" Federal Judge Margaret Stevens asked. "Yes, Your Honor," Klein replied in a voice barely audible above the courtroom's ventilation system. The sentencing hearing revealed the full scope of Klein's crimes through victim impact statements from families across the Midwest. Sarah Morrison approached the podium at 10:47 a.m. to address the man who had stolen her daughter and destroyed her family's sense of security. "Mr. Klein, you took my 8-year-old daughter from her school and sold her to strangers like she was a piece of property," Sarah began, her voice steady despite the emotional weight of her words. "Emma will carry the trauma of what you did to her for the rest of her life. She wakes up screaming from nightmares. She's afraid to go to school. She asks me every day if the bad men are coming back." Emma remained seated in the gallery, working on her coloring book while her mother spoke. The child psychologist had recommended that she not listen to detailed descriptions of Klein's crimes, but she wanted to be present to show that she was no longer afraid of him. "But you failed," Sarah continued, looking directly at Klein for the first time. "You tried to destroy our family, but we fought back. We found you. We saved our children, and Emma is stronger now than she was before you took her." The other families delivered similar statements, describing the devastation Klein's crimes had inflicted on their lives, while celebrating their children's survival and recovery. Diego Martinez's mother spoke about her son's ongoing therapy. Jennifer, William's father, described the family's financial struggles after months of searching for their daughter. But the most powerful statement came from Emma Morrison herself. At 11:23 a.m., Emma approached the witness stand with the assistance of her mother and the child psychologist. Judge Stevens had arranged for a small step stool so Emma could reach the microphone, and court officials had provided crayons and paper in case she needed a break during her testimony. "My name is Emma Morrison, and I'm 8 years old," she began, reading from a statement she had prepared with her therapist. "Mr. Klein took me from my school and scared me very much, but I remembered what my mommy taught me about being brave and telling the truth." Klein finally looked up from his hands, making eye contact with Emma for the first time since her rescue. The child stared back at him without fear, her blue eyes reflecting a strength that months of captivity had not diminished. "I want other kids to know that if something bad happens to them, their mommies and daddies will never stop looking for them," Emma continued, And I want Mr. Klein to know that he didn't win. I'm home with my family, and I'm not scared of him anymore. The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of journalists scribbling notes and the quiet sobbing of several family members. Emma returned to her seat and resumed coloring, having delivered one of the most powerful victim impact statements in the court's history. Judge Stevens sentenced Klein to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, calling his crimes among the most heinous examples of child exploitation she had encountered in 25 years on the federal bench. Thomas Brennan, Rebecca Martinez, and David Chen received similar sentences during subsequent hearings throughout May 2025. The trafficking network's entire leadership structure was dismantled, with federal prosecutors describing the case as one of the most successful child rescue operations in FBI history. But the legal proceedings also revealed that Klein's network had been connected to a larger criminal organization that remained operational. 12 children who had been sold to buyers between 2023 and 2024 were still missing, and law enforcement agencies continued investigating leads across multiple states. This case isn't over, Agent Kovac explained to the families after Klein's sentencing. We've destroyed one trafficking network, but there are others. The fight to protect children continues. Saturday, August 23, 2025, 2:30 p.m. Morrison Family Home, Springfield, Ohio. 5 months after her rescue, Emma Morrison was learning to be a child again. She stood in the backyard, wearing a yellow sundress and grass-stained sneakers, laughing. Here she chased soap bubbles that her mother was blowing from the deck. The sound of her laughter, pure, unrestrained joy, represented a victory that no court verdict could match. The healing process had been gradual and sometimes painful. Emma had experienced nightmares, anxiety attacks, and periods of withdrawal that tested every member of the Morrison family's emotional reserves. But child psychologist Dr. Patricia Williams had guided them through trauma recovery techniques that slowly restored Emma's sense of security and trust. The remarkable thing about children is their resilience, Dr. Williams explained during one of their sessions. Emma's brain is still developing, which makes her more vulnerable to trauma, but also more capable of recovery than adults experiencing similar experiences. Sarah had taken a leave of absence from her job as a marketing coordinator to focus entirely on Emma's recovery. The family's financial situation had been stabilized by the Victim Compensation Fund established by the federal government, along with donations from supporters across the country who had followed Emma's story. But the most significant factor in Emma's recovery was the support network created by the Seven Families group. The children who had been rescued together maintained regular contact through supervised video calls, sharing their experiences and supporting each other through the healing process. Diego is doing really good, Emma reported to her mother after a video call with the other rescued children. He's playing soccer again, and Jennifer learned how to ride a bike. We're all getting better. The group had evolved into something beyond shared trauma. They had become an extended family united by survival and recovery. The parents coordinated therapy resources, shared strategies for managing their children's needs, and provided mutual support during difficult moments. Emma had returned to Roosevelt Elementary School in May 2025, but with extensive security modifications recommended by the FBI. New dismissal procedures required two-factor authentication for early pickups, enhanced camera systems with redundant recording capabilities, and direct communication links with local law enforcement. Mrs. Hernandez had spent her summer vacation attending training sessions on trauma-informed education, learning techniques for supporting students who had experienced significant psychological stress. Emma's return to her third-grade classroom had been carefully planned with input from child psychologists, school administrators, and law enforcement experts. Emma is different now, Mrs. Hernandez observed during a parent conference in June. She's more serious, more aware of potential dangers, but she's also more confident, more willing to speak up when something doesn't feel right. The experience changed her, but it didn't break her. The Morrison family had received thousands of letters and emails from supporters around the world. Children Emma's age had sent drawings and encouraging messages. Parents shared their own stories of overcoming. Family crises. Law enforcement officers described how Emma's case had inspired improvements in missing children investigations. Sarah kept many of these messages in a scrapbook that Emma could read when she was older and ready to understand the broader impact of her survival story. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source: the other families whose children remained missing. Parents of the 12 children who had been sold by Klein's network before Emma's group was rescued had reached out to express gratitude for the investigation that had provided new leads in their own cases. "Emma's rescue gave us hope," wrote Patricia Chen, whose daughter had been missing for 18 months. "Knowing that other families found their children helps us believe that we might find ours too." The FBI had used information obtained from Klein's network to identify additional trafficking operations across the country. 3 more criminal organizations had been dismantled, resulting in the rescue of 14 additional children and the arrest of 37 individuals involved in child exploitation. Agent Kovac visited the Morrison family regularly to provide updates on the ongoing investigations and to check on Emma's recovery progress. During her August visit, she brought news that would have seemed impossible 6 months earlier. "We found another facility connected to Klein's network," she reported to Sarah while Emma played in the backyard. 5 more children were rescued yesterday in Nevada. The leads we developed from your case keep producing results. The ripple effects of Emma's rescue continued expanding months after her return home. Congressional hearings had led to new legislation, requiring enhanced security measures at schools receiving federal funding. Technology companies had developed improved surveillance detection systems based on the techniques Klein had used to infiltrate school networks. But for Emma Morrison, the most important outcome was much simpler. She was home, she was safe, and she was learning to trust the world again. "Mommy, can we have a sleepover party for my birthday?" Emma asked as they prepared dinner together that evening. "I want to invite my friends from school, and maybe Diego and Jennifer can come too." Sarah smiled, recognizing the request as another milestone in Emma's recovery. Her daughter was making plans for the future, building friendships, and creating new memories to replace the traumatic experiences she had endured. "So of course, sweetheart, we'll make it the best birthday party ever." Monday, March 18, 2027, 3:30 p.m. Morrison Family Home, Springfield, Ohio. Exactly 2 years after Emma Morrison's disappearance, she was doing something that would have seemed impossible. During those terrifying 23 days, leading other families through their own experiences with missing children. At age 10, Emma had become an unofficial spokesperson for child safety and family resilience, using her story to help others navigate the intersection of trauma and hope. The Emma Morrison Foundation for Missing Children operated from a converted office space in downtown Springfield, staffed by Sarah Morrison and 6 other parents whose children had been rescued from various trafficking networks. The foundation provided support services, advocacy resources, and investigative assistance to families dealing with missing children cases. "We learned that families can't just wait for the system to find their children," Sarah explained to a group of parents whose son had vanished from a Philadelphia school the previous week. "Sometimes you have to become your own investigators, use every tool available, and never stop searching." The Foundation's most successful program was the Digital Detective Workshop, where parents learned to use publicly available technology, Google Street View, social media analysis, database searches, and mapping software to conduct their own investigations parallel to official law enforcement efforts. Emma participated in these workshops when her school schedule permitted, sharing her perspective on the importance of family persistence and community support. Her presence provided hope to other families while demonstrating the possibility of recovery and healing. "When I was missing, I knew my mum would find me," Emma told the Philadelphia parents during the afternoon session. "She never stopped looking, and you can't stop looking either. Your son needs you to be strong and smart and brave." The foundation had assisted in locating 43 missing children over the past 18 months, using techniques developed from the Morrison case and refined through collaboration with law enforcement agencies across the country. Their success rate exceeded that of many professional investigation services. Agent Patricia Kovac now serving as the FBI's National Coordinator for Missing Children cases, maintained regular contact with the Foundation and often consulted with Sarah and Emma on policy development and training programs. The Morrison case fundamentally changed how we approach missing children investigations, Kovach explained during a recent conference presentation. We learned that families possess investigative capabilities and resources that complement professional law enforcement efforts. The key is coordination and communication between all parties involved. Emma's personal recovery had progressed remarkably well, though she continued regular sessions with Dr. Williams to address ongoing trauma-related concerns. Her academic performance had returned to pre-disappearance levels, and she had developed new interests in technology and criminal justice that reflected her unique experiences. "I want to help find missing kids when I grow up," Emma announced during a career day presentation at Roosevelt Elementary School. "Maybe I'll be an FBI agent like Agent Kovach, or maybe I'll use computers to catch bad guys like Mr. Webb." The school had implemented numerous security improvements based on lessons learned from Emma's case. The Emma protocol required biometric verification for all early dismissals, real-time communication with parents for any schedule changes, and immediate law enforcement notification for any suspicious activity. But perhaps the most significant change was cultural. The entire community had developed heightened awareness of child safety and the importance of vigilance in protecting vulnerable members of society. Roosevelt Elementary's annual Safety Awareness Day had become a community-wide event where children learned personal protection techniques. Parents received training on recognizing potential threats, and law enforcement officers demonstrated the resources available for family emergencies. Emma served as the event's honorary chairperson, using her platform to educate other children about staying safe, while emphasizing that most adults were trustworthy and helpful. "Bad people are real, but they're not everywhere," she explained to a group of kindergarten students during the 2027 Safety Awareness Day. "Most grown-ups want to help kids and keep them safe, but you should always remember the safety rules your parents teach you." The Seven Families group had evolved into a nationwide network of mutual support and advocacy. The rescued children maintained friendships despite living in different states, sharing milestone moments and continuing to support each other through video calls and family visits. Diego Martinez had developed an interest in martial arts and helped other children build confidence through self-defense training. Jennifer Williams had become passionate about art therapy, using creative expression to process her experiences and help others do the same. "We're not just survivors," Emma observed during the group's second annual reunion gathering. "We're helpers. We use what happened to us to make things better for other kids." Sarah Morrison reflected on the transformation her family had undergone as she watched Emma interact with other children during the reunion. The shy, quiet girl who had been kidnapped 2 years ago had developed into a confident, articulate young person who understood the power of survival and the importance of using personal experiences to benefit others. "Emma is stronger now than she was before any of this happened," Sarah told the assembled families during the reunion dinner. "Not because of what she went through, but because of how she chose to respond to it. She turned her trauma into purpose." The evening concluded with Emma leading the group in a moment of silence for the children who were still missing and the families who continued searching for them. Even at age 10, she understood that her rescue represented both an ending and a beginning, the conclusion of her own family's nightmare and the start of their commitment to preventing similar tragedies. As the Morrison family returned home to Springfield that night, Emma made a request that perfectly captured her journey from victim to advocate. "Mom, can we check the Foundation's email tonight? I want to see if any new families need our help." 2 years after her disappearance, Emma Morrison was no longer just a rescued child. She had become a symbol of resilience, a source of hope for desperate families, and proof that even the most traumatic experiences could be transformed into forces for positive change. The shadow on the map had been erased, but Emma's light continued to guide others through their own dark moments toward the promise of reunion, recovery, and renewed hope.